President Obama has ordered the first major military deployment of his presidency. We learned late today he's sending an additional 17,000 American troops to Afghanistan.
Afghan leader Hamid Karzai has criticized the international fight on terrorism. He says it's too focused on his country. Karzai was speaking at the Asia Society in New York, where he's attending this year's UN General Assembly.
That the war in Afghanistan, the war against terrorism in Afghanistan is not the right place to fight. That the war against terrorism cannot be fought in Afghan villages. That it has to have a regional approach, that has to be concentrated on the sanctuaries.
Afghan President Hamid Karzai has said he would welcome members of the Taliban who are enemies of the country to contribute to a process of political reconciliation.
Peace is necessary. We will try our best to bring peace to this country. It is my job as the president and as a citizen. The Taliban, who are not the enemy of this country, are most welcome. Not be against you. Be sure.
Afghan President Hamid Karzai has demanded US President-elect Barack Obama and civilians in Afghanistan. He made the demand after a report that US warplanes bombed a wedding party, killing 37 people, including 23 children and 10 women.
Our demand is there be no civilian casualties in Afghanistan. We cannot win the fight against terrorism with airstrikes and battles in Afghanistan's villages. This is our first and main demand, to stop civilians.
Afghan President Hamid Karzai is offering to provide security for Mullah Omar if the reclusive Taliban leader should agree to enter peace talks with the government. Karzai also said on Sunday that he would negotiate with those Taliban militants who should accept the Afghan national constitution and leave the Al-Qaeda network. He said if the international community didn't agree with this stance, they could either remove him from power or leave his country. Karzai made the comments as the insurgent movement is gaining increasing sway in large segments of Afghanistan. Taliban leaders have previously stipulated the withdrawal of foreign troops from the country as a precondition for their participation in any talks.
Pakistan has agreed to an open-ended ceasefire with Taliban militants operating in the Swat Valley. Officials say the pact will extend a truce as the country pursues broader talks aimed at calming a large section of its northwestern region.
God willing, we, the government, are working on a peace deal. We announced a ceasefire and we will take more steps after this. You will hear more good news soon.
The Taliban leader also says any decision to permanently enter into a ceasefire depends on the government taking unspecified practical steps.
The Pakistani army says it's ceased operations against Taliban militants in the northwestern Swat Valley. A former militant cleric acting as a peacemaker has asked for troops to be shifted to safer places to give peace a chance. The army says further civilian casualties would have alienated support for the military. After talks with the Taliban, a government official said Taliban fighters and Pakistani authorities had agreed to a permanent ceasefire in Swat.
Indirectly funding insurgents in Afghanistan. That's what the ISAF, or NATO's mission to Afghanistan, has been accused of by a British newspaper. Truckers operating the NATO supply convoys have been paying off the Taliban to stop them attacking. The paper says the situation has been going on for 14 months.
We use 2 European headquartered companies to supply food and fuel, though it is not prudent for us to name them. They provide their own security as part of the contract. Such companies are free to subcontract to whomsoever they wish.
The Times sources estimate the cost of security for every truck on roads south of Kabul is about $1,000, and reportedly up to 25% of that could go to the local militia. With typical Allied convoy consisting of 4,200 vehicles, the Taliban appear to have a steady revenue stream. At the moment, there are 70,000 international troops on the ground, and US could be sending 20,000 more next year. But it takes tons of food and fuel every day to keep that mission going. Other than flying in supplies, the only overland route is through Pakistan and Taliban-controlled areas of Afghanistan.
Kyrgyzstan has ordered U.S. forces to depart within 6 months from an air base that is key to military operations in Afghanistan. The decision has complicated U.S. plans to send more troops to battle rising Taliban and al-Qaeda violence in that region.
The agreement on the use of the Manas base, the only US base in Central Asia, was signed in 2001 when the United States launched the war in Afghanistan. Kyrgyzstan announced plans to close the Manas base earlier this month. Kyrgyzstan's president complained that the United States was not paying enough rent for the base. The announcement came shortly after Russia said it would give $2.15 billion in aid and loans to the nation. The Kyrgyz parliament on Thursday voted to approve the closure of the Manas base. On Friday, President Kurmanbek Bakiev signed the law terminating the lease agreement with the US. After receiving official notification on the closure of Manas, the US has 180 days to withdraw about 1,000 military personnel who are currently deployed there. Amy Bainbridge, CCTV.
1979. The country was in chaos. Afghanistan's pro-Soviet government was trying to contain a revolt by religious rebels known as the Mujahideen. Help from the Soviet Union was requested, and the USSR wanted to protect its influence in the region. What began as trepid assistance became a full-blown war, one that would go on for 9 years. Over 14,000 men would die. Almost 500,000 would be wounded or become sick. Some say the war in Afghanistan was the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. The U.S., who felt it was losing its grip on the region, was brewing a policy to promote radical Islamist and anti-communist forces. By raising the political and military cost of the war in Afghanistan for the USSR. But that was the U.S. plan, a trap, codenamed Operation Cyclone, funded by the CIA and designed to draw the USSR into an expensive and distracting Vietnam-like war. The arming of the Afghan Mujahideen, led by Ahmad Shah Massoud, was one of America's most expensive covert operations ever, ranging from $30 million a year to $630 million in 1987. But peace never came to Afghanistan. The Mujahideen made way for the Taliban, and the Taliban welcomed bin Laden.
The war on terror. What war on terror? Bin Laden trained with them. They prepared him. Now they are fighting against the Taliban. What terrorism are we fighting against?
20 years since the end of the Soviet-Afghan war, the U.S. now finds itself fighting against the very movement it helped arm, in a country 2 decades on that's still crippled by chaos.
In order to secure success, Obama is now sending 17,000 troops to join those already on the ground. Some experts say Washington is copying the Soviet mistakes.
The Taliban is the notorious product of the adversaries of the Soviets during the Cold War. There were American financial flows that supported radical Islamic movements like the Taliban and al-Qaeda.
The Soviets withdrew after almost a decade of fighting, but it failed to bring peace to the region torn apart by radical Islamists. Today, the US and its NATO allies are fighting the same foes Soviet soldiers were facing. After 8 years of NATO's military campaign in Afghanistan, it appears the Soviet lesson remains unlearned.